Greetings, Lawmasters. Tonight our chronicle covers the smallest and most vulnerable souls in a land defined by hardship, the 17 children of Skyrim who are left waiting for a home. We see them in the streets, on the farms, and in the orphanages, tiny figures etched against a backdrop of civil war, ancient dragons, and the casual cruelty of mortals. They are the background details of a grand adventure, easily missed in the rush to shout at a Draugr or absorb a dragon soul. The snows of Skyrim bite deep, the political winds are colder still, and magic itself seems to have a price measured in blood or sanity. Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't last a single night sleeping behind the bannered mare without a steel dagger, 10 health potions, and a serious fur-lined sleeping bag. Yet, for these children, this is not an adventure. It is a grim and relentless reality. Their stories are not of saving the world, but of simply trying to survive until the next sunrise. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Post your location and local time in the comments. It's always fascinating to see where these tales are travelling. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Our story begins not in some dark, forgotten crypt or a war-torn battlefield, but in the very heart of the land, the city that calls itself the centre of Skyrim, Whiterun. Here, beneath the comforting shadow of the great dragon-proud hall of Dragonsreach, the city bustles. The Skyforge roars, merchants hawk their wares in the market, and the companions drink their mead in Jorvaskr. It feels, on the surface, like the safest, most stable place in the entire hold. And yet, it is here we find our first tragedy, a small girl named Lucia. You see her first by the light of day, a tiny soot-stained figure standing near the Gildergreen, that great withered tree that acts as the city's central roundabout. She is begging, not with the practiced whine of a Riften thief, but with a quiet, desperate sincerity. She asks for a septim, just one, promising that the divines will bless you for it. If you ask her where her parents are, her story spills out with a devastating simplicity. "My mother died," she says, her voice flat. They said she was a bad person, that she's gone to the bad place." This, right here, is our first glimpse into the brutal social structure of Skyrim. Her mother, it seems, was not just dead, but judged. We are never told what she did to earn this posthumous reputation, but the stigma has transferred entirely to her daughter. The bad places, of course, is a child's interpretation of the soul cairn, or perhaps one of the less appealing planes of oblivion. It's a chilling piece of theology for a child to carry. But the immediate cruelty came not from the gods, but from family. Lucia continues, explaining that her mother owned a farm. After her death, her aunt and uncle from Everstead, a small village nestled at the foot of the throat of the world, came to Whiterun. They didn't come to rescue their niece, they came to liquidate her assets. They sold the farm, took all the money, and then, in an act of breathtaking callousness, informed Lucia that they had no room for her. They left her on the streets of Whiterun and returned to their inn, the Villemere Inn. It's a fittingly nasty name. Her aunt, Lucia says, is named Mila. This is a core in-game fact. If you travel to the Villemere Inn, you will indeed find a woman named Mila working there, blissfully unconcerned about the niece she abandoned. The true horror of Lucia's existence, however, is revealed when the sun dips behind the western watchtower and the cold night of Skyrim descends. Lucia doesn't have a corner in a flophouse. She doesn't have a spot in the Hall of the Dead. She makes her way from the market past the drunken huntsman and ducks into the alley behind the bannered mare. There, on a filthy, lice-ridden bedroll tossed on the cold stone next to a rotting crate and some discarded barrels, is her home. This is where she sleeps, exposed to the elements, to the city's drunks, and to the less savoury elements that even Whiterun's guards can't entirely control. Mikkel, the lecherous bard, stumbles out of that inn every night. Uthgerd the Unbroken, nursing her grievances, might storm past. The Dragonborn, clad in Daedric armour and glowing with enchantments, walks by, and the game itself doesn't even register the profound dissonance of the scene. The guards who patrol the city, so quick to comment on a drawn weapon, walk right past this child sleeping in an alley. Their indifference is perhaps the most chilling part of all. She shivers, pulls her thin rags tighter, and dreams. What does she dream of? A warm meal? Her mother's face? Or is it just the cold, a pervasive bone-deep ache that even sleep can't erase? Her dialogue is a knife twist. It gets so cold. The fan community, of course, has spent years trying to fill in the blanks that Bethesda left. This is one of the most prominent fan debates surrounding any of the children. Who was Lucia's mother? The game is silent. There is no note, no journal, no half-forgotten grave. Theories abound. Some believe her mother was a simple farmer from one of the many abandoned or destroyed farms that litter the plains of Whiterun Hold, perhaps killed by the very first dragon, Mimulnir, or by a band of Forsworn, or even just a common bandit raid. Others spin more elaborate tales suggesting her mother was an adventurer, or a member of a guild, or someone who ran afoul of the Dark Brotherhood. The truth is, it doesn't matter. The result is the same. Lucia is alone. This leads us to a lesser-known piece of lore, or, rather, a piece of developer intent. The Hearthfire expansion, which introduced adoption, was created in direct response to players feeling helpless in the face of suffering like Lucia's. She is, in many ways, the reason adoption exists in the game. The developers placed her in the most central, safest city, sleeping in the most vulnerable way imaginable, as a deliberate pull on the player's conscience. She is not hidden away in a remote village. She is right there, impossible to miss, a living testament to the world's indifference. Her existence raises uncomfortable questions about the society of Whiterun. Jarl Balgruuf the Greater, who sits on his throne and preaches about the strength of his city, is either unaware or unconcerned that a child is sleeping destitute not 500 feet from his hall. The Temple of Kinnereth, run by Danica Purespring, is right there. They are healers, worshippers of the sky and the natural world. Surely their charity could extend to one small girl. But no, Lucia remains outside, begging. It's a brutal, cynical piece of world building. This isn't a fairy tale. The people of Skyrim, by and large, are wrapped up in their own problems. The war, the dragons, the price of mead. A single orphan is just static, background noise. When the Dragonborn finally speaks to her, offering a home, her disbelief is palpable. Really? You mean it? Forever? It's a moment of pure, unadulterated catharsis, but it's also a damning indictment of everyone else who ever walked past her. The player, the prophesied hero, the world eater, is the only person in all of Whiterun to show a basic scrap of human decency. It's a bit of a joke, really. The Dragonborn, a figure who likely has a body count in the thousands and regularly consorts with Daedric princes, is the only viable foster parent in the city. Talk about a broken system. Lucia's story is the perfect introduction to the children of Skyrim. She's the baseline of tragedy, no parents, no home, abandoned by relatives, and ignored by her community. She survives on the scraps of a wealthy city, a ghost in plain sight, waiting for either a miracle or a cold, quiet end in an alleyway. If Whiterun's tragedy is one of hidden indifference, a collective agreement to look the other way, our next story is found in a place where cruelty is a celebrated virtue. We leave the grassy plains of the Central Hold and travel northeast, into the ice-bitten, snow-blasted marshes of Eastmarch. Our destination is Windhelm, the City of Kings, the ancient seat of Ysgramor, and a place that positively reeks of its own self-importance and bitter, festering prejudices. The wind howls down the stone canyons of the city, carrying with it the racial slurs from the pure Nords in the market and the quiet murmurs of the oppressed Dunmer in the Grey Quarter. It is, by any measure, the coldest place in Skyrim, and not just because of the weather. And it is here in the main market square, just a few feet from the open-air stalls, that we find Sofie. She's a tiny Nord girl, her hair the colour of pale straw, her face red and raw from the wind. She is standing, not running or playing, but standing perfectly still in the snow, clutching a small basket of flowers. Flowers in Windhelm. The absurdity of it is the first punch to the gut. She's trying to sell flower baskets in a city that is frozen solid for 12 months of the year, a city where the only local flora seems to be snow, ice, and stubborn tundra grass. It's a child's desperate, nonsensical attempt at commerce. She's not just begging, she's trying to work, offering the only beautiful, out-of-place thing she has in a world of grey stone and grey morality. Like Lucia, she will tell you her story if asked, and like Lucia's, it is a story of a loss. My mother passed away a while back, she explains, her voice small against the roar of the wind. My father, He was a Stormcloak. He fought in the war. But he's gone now too. This is the core in-game fact of her existence, and it is a brutal one. Sofie is a war orphan, but not just any war orphan. She is the daughter of a Stormcloak soldier. Her father died fighting for Ulfric's Stormcloak, for the sacred cause of a free Nord-led Skyrim. And what is the result of his patriotic sacrifice? His daughter is left to freeze to death on the streets of the very city he was fighting for. Ulfric sits in the Palace of the Kings, just a short walk away, planning his next military manoeuvre, while the child of one of his martyred soldiers is homeless, parentless, and slowly dying of exposure. The hypocrisy is so thick you could cut it with a Stalrim dagger. It's one of the great unspoken jokes of the entire Civil War questline. No matter which side you take, here is the human cost, shivering and selling impossible flowers. When the market closes and the other merchants, like Hillevi Cruelsea, pack up their wares to return to their warm homes, Sofie does not follow. She does not go to the Grey Quarter, as the Dunmer would not have her. She does not go to the Aretino residence, which is now haunted by a different kind of childhood tragedy. She does not go to the Argonian assemblage, for she is not a lizard. She is a Nord, and the Nords of Windhelm have utterly failed her. She makes her way down towards the icy docks, where the great ship, the Northern Maiden, is chained. She walks past the East Empire Company building and ducks behind the house of Nirania, the Altmer merchant. There, on a small frozen patch of ground, is a pathetic pile of straw. This is where she sleeps. It is, if anything, even worse than Lucia's spot. Lucia had an alley. Sofie has a patch of open ground, exposed to the full, unrelenting fury of the coastal wind, with only the smell of fish and salt water for comfort. Her vulnerability is staggering. This brings us to an obscure but terrifying piece of in-world context. At the same time that Sofie is sleeping outside, the city of Windhelm is being terrorized by a serial killer. The quest, Blood on the Ice, reveals that the Butcher is stalking the streets, murdering women and harvesting their organs. While the Butcher specifically targets women, the fact remains that Sofie is a female, alone, sleeping in the dark in the very city where this is happening. The guards are so incompetent that they can't solve the murders happening right under their noses. They certainly have no time to check on a freezing orphan. Sofie's continued survival is frankly a miracle. She is a testament to the sheer, stubborn resilience of a child who refuses to die. She gets up every morning, frozen to the bone, and finds her flowers. Where does she get them? This is a popular community debate. The items are just flower baskets. They're not a specific regional plant. Some fans theorize she scavenges them from the graveyard, picking them off of fresh graves, a truly morbid thought. Others suggest she's pulling the few, hardy tundra flowers that grow outside the city, or perhaps that someone in the Grey Quarter, maybe even a Dunmer who knows what it's like to be an outcast, quietly gives them to her. The most likely and most mundane answer is that it's just game logic, but in a narrative sense the flowers represent her innocence, a fragile thing that has no business existing in a place like Windhelm, yet stubbornly does. The fan community also spends a great deal of time wondering about her father. Unlike with Lucia's mother, we know who he was, a Stormcloak. This leads to a darker fan theory. What if her father wasn't just a Stormcloak, but one the Dragonborn has met, or more grimly, one the Dragonborn has killed? If the player joins the Imperials, the game culminates in the battle for Windhelm. How many of the nameless Stormcloak soldiers cut down in that final bloody siege had a child like Sofie waiting for them? The game, of course, never acknowledges this. You can adopt Sofie and then, a week later, lead the charge that kills a man who might be just like her father. Her suffering is a direct indictment of the Stormcloak cause. They scream about Skyrim for the Nords but abandon a Nord child. They honour their dead soldiers with words in the Palace of the Kings, but not with actions in the street. Angrenor, once honoured, the beggar who sits by the fire, is a wounded veteran of the Great War, and he too is left to beg. Windhelm, it seems, has a habit of discarding its heroes the second they stop being useful. When the Dragonborn approaches Sofie and offers her a home, her reaction is heartbreaking. She's so stunned that someone is even speaking to her with kindness that she can barely process the offer. You'd do that?" she stammers. "You'd take me away from here?" Her desire is not for a palace or for gold, it is simply to be taken away from here. Away from the cold, away from the judgmental eyes, away from the city her father died for. Lucia's story was about neglect. Sofie's story is about betrayal. She is the ghost of the Stormcloak Rebellion, a living, freezing reminder of the profound cost of a war fought by proud men who never look down to see who they're trampling. From the betrayal of a frozen capital, our narrative path follows the coastline west, past the ancient ruins of Sarthal and into the bleak, colourless expanse of the Pale. We arrive at the town of Dawnstar. On the surface, it is a functional, if grim, little port. It has a Jarl's Hall, 2 bustling mines, and an inn. But beneath that thin veneer, the entire town is rotting from the inside out. The air itself feels heavy, paranoid, and exhausted. The people here are not just cold, they are unwell, and in the middle of this communal sickness, a small Redguard boy is running as if his life depends on it. Because in a very real sense, it does. His name is Alesan. He is the only Redguard child in the game, a speck of Hammerfell's warmth lost in a sea of northern ice. Unlike Lucia or Sofie, Alesan is not begging. He has a job. In fact, he has the most physically demanding job of any child we will meet. He is Dawnstar's official and only delivery runner. You see him darting through the town's single muddy street, a small pack on his back, his face a mask of weary determination. If you follow him, you'll see his route. He starts at the Windpeak Inn, where Thoring, the innkeeper, hands him packages of food and supplies. He then sprints to Ironbreaker Mine, on the north side of town, delivers the food to the miners, takes their pay, and runs back. Then he does it again, this time to the Quicksilver Mine, on the west side near the Jarl's Hall. Back and forth, all day, from sunrise to sunset, a tiny engine of commerce in a town that has no other. He is, in essence, a child labourer. He's the gig economy for a fantasy setting, and he's getting paid pennies. He'll tell you as much. I run. All day, he pants, if you manage to stop him. Bringing food to the miners. They pay me a bit. Thoring. He pays me a bit. Those bits are barely enough to keep him alive, and they certainly don't buy him a bed. When the last miner has been fed and the sun has vanished into the sea of ghosts, Alesan's workday finally ends. But he doesn't go to a home. He doesn't even have an alley. He walks into the Windpeak Inn past the roaring fire and the tables of drinking Nords, and collapses onto a filthy, bug-ridden pile of straw in the corner of the main room. This is his bed, right on the floor, where every drunkard can step on him, where the bard's music, if Dawnstar even had a decent bard, would keep him awake. This is the core fact of his life. He works all day and sleeps on the floor of his employer's inn like a dog. Thoring, the innkeeper, is a masterpiece of passive-aggressive evil. He lets Alesan sleep there, an act he probably considers great charity. The boy? Oh yes, he's a hard worker. I let him sleep by the fire, keeps the chill off. He says this, of course, while renting out rooms upstairs for 10 septims a night. It's a joke, really. The Dragonborn can walk in, fresh from killing a troll, and get a clean bed and a hot meal while the child who, literally keeps the town's economy moving sleeps on the dirt. But Alesan's story gets so much darker. When you ask him about his parents, he'll tell you his tale. My father was a sailor, on a ship from Hammerfell. It sank, off the coast near here. He pauses, and his voice, already small, gets smaller. He told me to swim for the lights of the town. He said he'd be right behind me. Alesan made it. His father did not. He's not just an orphan, he's a refugee and a shipwreck survivor. He carries the immense trauma of having watched his father drown, of surviving a night in the freezing, ghost-infested waters of Skyrim's northern coast. This alone would be enough to break a child. But Dawnstar is not a normal town. This is the obscure and horrifying lore tidbit that hangs over Alesan's entire life. The town of Dawnstar is cursed. Every single citizen, from Jarl Skald the Elder to the miners Alesan serves, is being tormented by unending, horrific nightmares. They cannot sleep. They are exhausted, paranoid, and turning on one another. This is the quest, Waking Nightmare, and it reveals that the entire town is under the influence of the Daedric Prince Vermina, the Lady of Torment, the Weaver of Dreams. Her artifact, the Skull of Corruption, is being misused in the temple just up the hill, blanketing the town in a miasma of psychological terror. Now, think back to Alesan. He will tell you, I have bad dreams about the shipwreck. I I see the water, and I see him. The other townsfolk are having abstract nightmares about spiders or wars or their past crimes. Alesan's nightmares are different. Vermina's influence is not giving him new nightmares. It is finding his single, greatest trauma, the death of his father, and putting it on a repeating high-definition loop. His PTSD is being actively weaponized against him every single night by a Daedric god. He's not just having bad dreams, he is being psychologically tortured, his grief and loss weaponized to feed a malevolent deity. This is why he runs. He's not just running for his job, he's running from his memories. He's running to make himself so physically exhausted that when he collapses on that pile of straw, he might, for just a few minutes, fall into a sleep too deep for the nightmares to find him. But they always do. The fan community naturally has picked apart his father's story. Who was this sailor? This is a common point of debate. Redguards are known as the finest sailors on Tamriel, yes, but why was their ship sinking off the coast of Dawnstar? It's a notoriously dangerous and, frankly, low-value port. Theories are plentiful. Was his father a merchant? Or was he a smuggler, running afoul of the East Empire Company, or more likely a band of the pirates who operate from the surrounding islands? Some theories suggest he was a refugee from the Aldmeri Dominion, fleeing Hammerfell's own troubles, and the sinking was just a tragic accident. Others propose a darker idea, that the ship was attacked and Alesan's father died not just to the water, but to a pirate's blade, a memory so terrible the boy has buried it. The game never tells us. All we know is that this child, who has already endured more than most adults, is now trapped in a town that is a living nightmare. He is overworked, underpaid, homeless, and being tormented by a Daedric prince. When the Dragonborn offers him a home, it's not just a kind gesture, it is an exorcism. It is a rescue. Alesan's reply is one of pure, desperate hope. You mean it? I can come live with you? I promise I'll be good. I can sweep, or anything. He's so conditioned to his labour that the first thing he does is offer to work. He can't even conceive of a home where he doesn't have to earn his right to sleep on the floor. Lucia's story was about indifference. Sofie's was about betrayal. Alesan's story is one of pure, unrelenting exhaustion, a physical, emotional, and supernatural weariness that is grinding him into dust. From the nightmarish coast of Dawnstar, we now turn our compasses south and west, across the Dragon Bridge, and toward the soaring, majestic capital of Harfingar Hold, the City of Solitude. It is the very picture of imperial power and wealth. It sits perched on a magnificent stone arch, gleaming in the pale northern sun. The East Empire Company has its headquarters here, the Bard's College sings its praises, and the Legion holds its parades. It is a city of high culture, fine tailoring, and staggering arrogance. It feels a world away from the grit and despair of Windhelm or the supernatural paranoia of Dawnstar. But just like Whiterun, this shining facade hides a deep, dark rot. To find our next child, we don't even enter the city gates. We stop just outside, at the farm that supplies all that high-culture food. This is Katla's farm. And here, amidst the crops and the livestock, we find a Breton boy named Blaze. At first glance, he just looks like a farmhand. You'll see him wandering the property, sometimes tending the crops, but more often, he's with the animals. He is, for all intents and purposes, the stable boy. He mucks out the stalls, feeds the horses, and brushes their coats. He is, like Alesan, a child labourer. He works from sun-up to sundown for his keep. And keep is the operative word. If you talk to the farm's owner, Katla, she'll mention him as an afterthought. He's a good worker for a boy, helps with the horses, earns his keep. Her tone is one of pure transaction. He is an asset, like a strong ox or a good plough. Her husband, Snilf, is a drunk who sleeps in the workers' barracks. Her son, Canud, is a child who complains about work. Blaze, meanwhile, is the one holding the actual farm together, yet he is treated as less than family. The true, horrifying core fact of Blaze's life is revealed at night. When Katla and her family retire to their warm farmhouse, Blaze does not go to the barracks. He doesn't even have a corner on the farmhouse floor. He walks to the stables, to the pen where the horses and the cow are kept, and he lies down on a pile of hay. He sleeps with the animals. In the capital of Skyrim, the seat of the Imperial Legion, a child is sleeping in a barn surrounded by manure and the smell of livestock, literally one step above the dirt. It's an almost biblical level of poverty, a grim nativity scene in reverse. And the worst part, he's so close to the city. He can see the lights of the Bard's College. He can probably hear the horns from the castle dower. He's forgotten, not in a remote wilderness, but on the very doorstep of civilization. If you speak to him, his story comes tumbling out, and the irony becomes so thick it's suffocating. My parents were in the Legion, he says, his voice quiet. They went fighting, somewhere. They never came back. Let that sink in. He is the son of Imperial Legionnaires. His parents died in service to the Emperor, defending the very ideals that solitude is meant to represent. And their son's reward for their ultimate sacrifice is to be treated as livestock by a callous farmer. This is the Imperial equivalent of Sofie's story in Windhelm. Both sides of the war, for all their posturing about honour and justice, are perfectly happy to let their soldiers' children rot. It's the one thing Ulfric and Tullius seem to agree on. This is a scathing, unspoken critique of the Empire. The Legion, for all its talk of lex and ordo stest, law and order, has no pension for its veterans' families. There is no Imperial orphanage. There is no support system. You serve, you die, and your children are cast out to sleep in barns. It's a joke that the game plays with a completely straight face. The Dragonborn can be the legate, the right hand of General Tullius himself, and will walk right past this boy without a second glance. This leads us to an obscure but relevant piece of in-game lore. Think about the other Legion families. We have Hadvar, whose uncle is the blacksmith in Riverwood, a tight-knit family unit. We have Rikke, who is a native Nord, but for the thousands of Imperial soldiers, the Cyrodiils and Bretons who are shipped up to Skyrim, it's a foreign posting. If they die, who is there to claim their children? Blaze is the answer. He is the living proof of the Legion's fundamental flaw. It is an occupying army, and when its soldiers fall, their baggage is simply discarded. The fan community has, of course, debated Catella's role in this. Is she just a cruel, greedy woman who found a stray, homeless boy and immediately saw a source of free labour? This is the most likely and most chilling interpretation. She isn't related to him. She just enslaved him, in all but name. Other theories try to find some scrap of humanity in her. Perhaps she was a friend of Blaze's mother, or a distant relative, and took him in begrudgingly. But her dialogue, and the fact he sleeps in a barn, seems to lean heavily towards the monstrous interpretation. Fans also debate the fate of his parents. Fighting somewhere is so vague. Were they killed in the Great War against the Thalmor, with Blaze having been an orphan for years? Or did they die more recently, perhaps in the skirmish at the border that led to Ulfric's capture, or in one of the endless bloody ambushes that define the Civil War? The game leaves it open, and in a way it's more tragic for it. His parents are just gone, eaten by the great impersonal machine of the Imperial war effort. When the Dragonborn offers to adopt him, Blaze's reaction is one of stunned practical disbelief. He doesn't cry, not at first. He just says, "You mean I'd have a bed, a warm bed, inside a house?" His entire concept of salvation, his wildest, most impossible dream, is not gold, or power, or adventure. It's a bed, indoors. The contrast is what makes his story so powerful. Lucia is neglected in a busy city. Sofie is betrayed by a political cause. Alesan is supernaturally tormented. But Blaze is just inconvenient. He is an administrative error. He's the son of heroes who has been filed away under livestock. His story is one of profound, bureaucratic, imperial ingratitude. He is the dirt under the polished boot of the Empire. We leave Blaze and the false hope of solitude behind, travelling southeast across the entire breadth of Skyrim. We cross the snowy passes of the Gerald Mountains, skirt the Great Lake near Riften, and descend into the autumnal valley of the Rift. This place is beautiful, a riot of gold and orange leaves, but the beauty is a lie. It's a painted mask on a rotten skull. We're heading to the city of Riften, the armpit of Skyrim. If you could bottle the smell of damp wood, stale mead and systemic corruption, it would be sold as Riften Reserve. This is the home of the Thieves Guild, the seat of the Blackbriar dynasty, and a place where every handshake comes with a hidden knife. And it is here, in this cesspit of greed, that we find Skyrim's official answer to the orphan problem, the Honorhall Orphanage. It even sounds noble, doesn't it? Honorhall. It sounds like a place where the proud children of fallen warriors are raised. The reality is, well, it's in Riften. What did you expect? You walk through the rat-infested streets, past the beggars and the thugs, and enter a modest building. The air inside is stale and joyless. There are a few beds, a common room, and a palpable atmosphere of dread. The children here, and there are several, are not playing. They are standing, waiting and watching, and they are all watching one person. Her name is Grelad the Kind. This is the core, in-game fact that defines this entire location, and it is the single most sarcastic, bitterly ironic joke in the entire Elder Scrolls franchise. Grelad is not kind. She's a twisted, shriveled old woman whose heart, if it exists, is a tiny, cold pebble of malice. She is the embodiment of bureaucratic evil, a petty tyrant who has mistaken cruelty for discipline. You can walk in and hear her kindness for yourself. She lines the children up and unleashes a tirade of verbal and emotional abuse. "You are lazy, worthless, unwanted," she screeches. "You will be here until you die, because no one will ever want you." She has an assistant, a younger woman named Constance Michel, who seems terrified but is ultimately useless, a classic enabler who wrings her hands and does nothing. And in the middle of this toxic, hopeless environment, we find Francois Beaufort. He's a Breton boy, small for his age, with the sharp, intelligent features of his people, and his face is set in a permanent, weary sneer. He is the Honorhall cynic. While the other children just look cowed and beaten, Francois looks annoyed. He's not just sad, he's over it. He's the kid in the back of the class who has already figured out the teacher is an idiot and is just counting the seconds until the bell rings, even if that bell will never come. If you, the great armour-clad dragonborn, walk up and speak to him, he doesn't beg. He doesn't tell you a sob story. He hits you with a blast of pure, unadulterated cynicism. "What do you want?" he'll snap. "Come to adopt one of us? Make yourself feel good?" He already has your number. He's seen this before. He's seen the high and mighty nobles of Riften walk through, look at the merchandise, and walk out. This is what makes Francois different from the children we've met so far. We have no idea how he got here. He doesn't have a tragic shipwreck story or a tale of martyred legionnaire parents. This, of course, has led to a major fan debate. Who is Francois Beaufort? His Breton name suggests he's from High Rock, or at least of High Rock descent. Bretons are known for their intelligence, their merchant savvy, and their complex, often cutthroat politics. This leads to a popular fan theory that Francois wasn't abandoned out of tragedy, but out of convenience. Perhaps his parents were failed merchants who couldn't afford a child. Or maybe they were minor nobles from Daggerfall who had a problematic heir and simply discarded him in the farthest, foulest city they could find. This brings us to a more obscure piece of lore regarding Bretons. They are not just good at magic, they are obsessed with status. Their entire society is a complex, brutal ladder of social climbing. A child who is not useful, or who's born at an inconvenient time, is a liability. It's entirely possible Francois's parents are alive, well, and sipping wine in Wayrest, having written him off as a bad investment. This context makes Francois's personality click into place. He's not just a sad boy, he's a Breton boy. He sees the world as a game of influence and power, and he knows he has none. Grelad isn't just a mean old lady, she's a petty jarl, and he's her most powerless subject. He sees the orphanage not as a home, but as a prison, and he has analysed the entire system. His cynicism is his intelligence. It's his only defence. He watches the Dragonborn with calculating eyes. He's trying to figure out the angle. Yeah. Oh, you're so smart. Oh, you're so brave. I've heard it all, he might say, if he were being truly honest. He doesn't believe in kindness because he has never seen an act of kindness in Honorhall that wasn't in reality a transaction. Constance is kind, so the children will be quiet. Grelad is kind in name only, to secure funding from the Jarl. If the Dragonborn, against all of Francois's better judgment, offers to adopt him, the boy's armour cracks. But it doesn't shatter. He doesn't burst into tears of joy, he gets suspicious. Wait, you're serious? You're not just messing with me? He's waiting for the catch. Is he going to be a servant? A pack mule? Will he be taken to a new, even worse place? His entire life has taught him that if something seems too good to be true, it is a lie. He is the tragic counterpart to Blay. Blay sleeps in a barn, a victim of imperial ingratitude. Francois sleeps in a bed, a victim of institutionalized state-sanctioned despair. He is not cold or starving necessarily. He is being emotionally and psychologically flayed day in and day out by a woman whose entire job is to care for him. His wounds aren't from a single gaping trauma, but from the death of 1,000 cuts. He is a child who has been forced to become an old, jaded man. And his greatest tragedy is that, in a world like Skyrim, his cynicism is probably the most logical and sane response he could possibly have. As Francois Beaufort stews in his corner, his mind building an intellectual fortress against the despair of Honorhall, our attention is drawn to another child. A much, much louder child. You don't find him with your eyes, you find him with your ears. A small Nord boy, his face smudged with dirt, will suddenly stand tall, suck in a breath, and let out a sound that is entirely out of place in the quiet, oppressive misery of the orphanage. It is a raw, guttural roar. His name is Hroar, and that's the first thing you need to know about him. If you approach this tiny, furious boy, he seems startled, as if he's not used to being addressed directly by an adult who isn't screaming at him. He's jittery, a bundle of raw, frayed nerves. When you ask him his name, he explains it himself with a kind of desperate pride. I'm Hroar. It's like a bear. Hroar! This is Hroar's entire world. He is not like Francois, the cynic who retreats into his own mind. Hroar is the opposite. He is externalizing his trauma in the only way a small Nord child knows how, by trying to be a monster. The core, in-game fact of his existence is this simple, heartbreaking performance. He is surrounded by cruelty, personified by Grelod the Kind. Grelod is a monster, a hag in the parlance of Tamriel, and in a world filled with dragons, giants and trolls, Hroar has learned a very simple, very primal lesson. To fight a monster, you must become one yourself, or at the very least, you must pretend to be one. His roar is not a game, it is a shield, it is a desperate, magical incantation. He is a small, terrified boy, and he is roaring to make himself feel big. He is roaring to try and scare away the real monster who walks the halls. When he explains his name, he'll tell you about Grelod. Grelod is a monster. She's roar, he roars at the concept of her. He's trying to frighten his own fear. It's the Skyrim equivalent of a child whistling past a graveyard, only this graveyard is his home, and he's not whistling. He's doing his best bear impersonation. But his fantasy goes so much deeper and so much darker than just making loud noises. If you press him, he will tell you his dream, and it is not a child's dream. Someday, he says, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, I'm going to be a werewolf, then I'll be really strong, and I'll come back, and I'll eat Grelod. Let's just pause and absorb that. This is not a fairy tale. This is a detailed revenge fantasy. This child is not dreaming of being a knight, or a jarl, or a member of the Companions. He's dreaming of becoming a bloodthirsty Daedric-cursed beast for the express purpose of returning to his home and committing an act of horrific cannibalistic violence against his abuser. This is what Honorhall Orphanage and Grelod the Kind have created. They have taken a child and ground down his humanity so completely that his only aspiration left is to become a monster. He doesn't want to be a person anymore. In his experience, people are either victims like him and the other children, or they are tormentors like Grelod. He has rejected the entire paradigm. He has decided to become a predator. This brings us to the obscure lore tidbit that makes Hroar's story so terrifying. He doesn't know what he's asking for. In Tamriel, becoming a werewolf is not a superpower. It is a pact. It is the curse of lycanthropy, a boon from the Daedric prince Hircine, the hunter. When a werewolf dies, its soul doesn't go to Sovngarde or to the Dreamsleave. It is pulled directly into Hircine's personal plane of oblivion, the hunting grounds, to be hunted and to hunt for all of eternity. Hroar, in his childish rage, is unknowingly praying to a Daedric god. He is begging for a curse that will not just give him strength, but will damn his very soul. And in Skyrim, this isn't an idle fantasy, it's a possibility. The Dragonborn themselves can walk into that orphanage as a full-fledged card-carrying werewolf, a member of the Circle. It's a bit of a grim joke, really. Hroar confesses his dream of becoming a beast, and the Dragonborn just stands there, silently, perhaps thinking, kid, you have no idea. Where did he even learn about werewolves? He's an orphan in Riften. This is a core fact of the game's world. The companions. The stories of the Beast of Jorvaska are whispered all over Skyrim. To most, they are boogeymen. To Hroar, they are a career goal. He has heard the rumours of men who can turn into wolves, men who are strong, men who are feared, and he wants in. This leads to a fascinating and tragic community debate. Is Hroar his real name? His own dialogue, "I'm Hroar, it's like a bear," suggests it's a name he adopted, or perhaps a nickname he insists upon. This has led to the fan theory that Hroar is, in essence, a feral child in the making. His original identity, whatever it was, perhaps he was Stig, or Jorn, or Lars, has been so thoroughly broken by Grelad that he has shed it, like a snake's skin. He has replaced his human name with the sound of his own rage. He is not a person, he is Hroar. He has abandoned his identity and is actively trying to devolve. He is rejecting language, a key part of his humanity, in favour of a primal roar. He is rejecting civilization in favour of the beast. He is the polar opposite of Francois. Francois's mind is his escape. Hroar's instinct is his. Francois intellectualized his trauma, and Hroar has animalized it. He is in many ways the most profound testament to Grelad's evil. She hasn't just made the children sad or scared. She has fundamentally broken their concept of the world. She has become such an archetypal monster in their lives that they have, in turn, retreated into their own archetypes. Francois became the cynic. Hroar became the beast. When the Dragonborn, the ultimate predator of the world, the consumer of dragon souls, offers this boy a home, his reaction is one of pure shock. You want me? Even though Hroar? He gives his roar as a test. He's asking, you want me even though I'm a monster? Can you handle this? Are you stronger than I am? And when the Dragonborn doesn't flinch, doesn't scold him, but simply accepts him, it's the first time his strength has been met with kindness. It's the first step in a long, difficult journey of convincing a small, terrified boy that he is, in fact, a boy and not a bear, and that he doesn't need to eat his enemies to be safe. While Hroar is busy trying to turn his body into a weapon, bellowing his rage into the uncaring rafters of Honorhall, there is another child in the room who has chosen a different path. She is just as furious, just as broken, but her anger is not a roar. It is a whisper. It is a prayer. We turn our attention to Runa Fairshield. She is a Nord girl like Hroar, but where he is all manic feral energy, Runa is a picture of coiled, intense stillness. You will often find her standing apart from the others, her hands clasped, her eyes squeezed shut, her lips moving silently. She's not talking to herself. She's talking to her gods, and she is furious with them. Runa represents the third and final archetype of the Honorhall trauma response. If Francois is the mind, retreating into cynicism, and Hroar is the body, regressing into a primal, animal state, then Runa is the spirit. She has rejected the physical, hopeless reality around her and has placed her entire, desperate, terrifying faith in the divine. When you speak to her, she doesn't tell you a tragic backstory about her parents. She doesn't complain about the food. She cuts right to the chase, and in doing so, reveals the core in-game fact of her existence. I pray, she will tell you, her voice a low, intense hiss, to the divines, Mara, Dibella, Kinnereth. I pray all the time. It sounds sweet at first, a pious child finding comfort in faith. But then she delivers the punchline. I pray they'll smite Grelad with lightning. This is not a prayer for comfort. It is not a prayer for deliverance or a new home. It is a prayer for divine retribution. Runa is a child-sized inquisitor, on her knees, begging the heavens to incinerate her abuser. She has just as much violence in her heart as Hroar. She has just outsourced the wet work to the Aedra. It's a dark, bitter joke. The one good religious child in the orphanage isn't praying for peace. She's praying for a holy firestorm to cleanse her room. This is what Grelad's kindness does. It takes the concept of faith, of comfort, of divine love, and it twists it into a weapon. Runa's entire spiritual life is now defined by her hatred for one old woman. But the true crushing tragedy of her faith lies in an obscure but vital piece of world building. Where is Runa? She is in Riften. and what is the most prominent religious institution in Riften, the Temple of Mara, the goddess of love, compassion, and family, the patron goddess of orphans. The temple is, quite literally, a 1-minute walk from the orphanage. Marimal, the chief priest, walks those streets every day. He preaches in the Bee and Barb. He sells amulets of Mara. He is the city's self-proclaimed expert on love and kindness. And he, and the entire institution he represents, are completely and utterly failing Runa Fairshield. The Honorhall Orphanage should, by all rights, be under the temple's direct supervision. Instead, it is run by a sadistic crone, and the priests do nothing. They are at best criminally negligent, and at worst complicit in the abuse through their silence. Runa is on her knees, praying to a goddess whose own priests won't even walk across the street to help her. She's praying to an HR department that has lost her file. Every day, Runa wakes up and Grelod is still there, unsmited. This must create a profound crisis of faith. Her prayers are not being answered. The silence from the heavens must be deafening. And so, her prayers probably become more frantic, more desperate. Her zealotry is not the calm, confident faith of a true believer. It is the frantic, last-ditch bargaining of a soul that is drowning. This leads to the community debate surrounding her name, Fairshield. It's a proud, strong Nord name. What does it mean? The most popular fan theory is that she comes from a long line of warriors, perhaps housecarls or city guards, people who were shields for others. Her name is a legacy of protection, and now she is the one who is completely unshielded. Her name then becomes a terrible irony. Her only shield is her faith, and it is a shield that is proving to be made of paper. She is a Fairshield with no one to shield her, and no shield of her own. Other fans debate the source of her faith. Did her parents teach her to be so pious? Perhaps they were priests themselves or devout followers of the divines. If so, where are they? Did they die? Did they abandon her? And if they were so devout, why did their gods abandon them? The most chilling possibility, of course, is that Runa has arrived at this vindictive piety all on her own, that she, a small child, looked at the world, saw the all-powerful divines, saw the all-powerful Grelod, and logically concluded that the only way to solve her problem was for one to eliminate the other. And now we come to the darkest joke of all, the one that the player brings into the story. Runa is praying for a divine agent to smite Grelod. And who eventually answers that call? Not Mara, not Kinnereth. It's the Dark Brotherhood. If the Dragonborn follows the Innocence Lost questline, they will be the one to smite Grelod. Runa prays to the Aedra, and Sithis answers the call. The Dragonborn, a figure who literally murders an old woman in cold blood for a good cause but still, becomes the literal answer to Runa's prayers. Her faith is validated, but in the most twisted, blasphemous way imaginable. She prayed for a miracle, and she got an assassination. When the Dragonborn, fresh from that murder or simply as a passerby, offers to adopt her, her reaction is unlike any of the other children's. She doesn't hesitate. She isn't cynical like Francois. She isn't shocked like Hroar. She is relieved. "Oh, thank you," she cries. "The divines did answer my prayers." She doesn't see you, the Dragonborn, as a kind person. She sees you as an angel, a divine messenger, a walking, talking, sword-swinging miracle, sent from Aetherius itself to rescue her. She is, in a way, the most deluded of all the Honorhall children. Her coping mechanism is to place you, her new parent, on a divine pedestal. She has escaped her prison only by wrapping herself in an even more profound, and perhaps even more dangerous fantasy. She's Runa Fairshield, the girl who prayed for a smiting and got one. We have now met the children of Honorhall, and we have seen the brutal psychological armour they have been forced to build. Francois, the cynic, who built a fortress in his mind. Hroar, the beast who is trying to sharpen his body into a fang. Runa, the zealot, who has constructed a shield of divine, desperate and vindictive faith. These are all complex, tragic reactions to trauma. But to truly understand the horror of Grelod the Kind, we must look at the child who has no armour at all. We must find the one who hasn't developed a complex coping mechanism, who hasn't retreated into a fantasy, who hasn't even learned to be cynical. We must find the raw, unprocessed fear at the heart of the orphanage. His name is Samuel. He's a small imperial boy, and he is, in a word, terrified. You don't find Samuel by his actions. You find him by his inaction. He is the expert in vanishing. He is the master of the silent retreat. While Hroar is roaring and Runa is praying, Samuel is not. He is trying to become part of the wall. He's trying to breathe more quietly. He's trying to take up less space, to achieve a state of pure, unnoticed non-existence. Because in Honorhall, to be noticed by Grelod is to be in pain. The core in-game fact of Samuel's life is his role as Grelod's primary target. When you first enter the orphanage, Grelod is almost always in the middle of her daily ritual of psychological torture, and Samuel is her audience. "You are worthless," she screams. "Lazy, unwanted." And Samuel just takes it. He flinches, he trembles, but he doesn't talk back. He doesn't roar. He has learned that the only way to survive the storm is to be the reed that bends, and he is bending until his spine is about to snap. If you speak to him, his dialogue is a heartbreaking portrait of pure victimhood. I try to stay away from Grelod," he'll whisper, his eyes darting around as if saying her name aloud will summon her. "As much as I can." He's not plotting revenge. He's not dreaming of escape. He is just hiding. He's in a permanent state of high alert, a child soldier in a psychological war, his every nerve ending tuned to the sound of Grelod's footsteps. This is his entire existence. This, of course, has led to a prominent fan debate. Why Samuel? Why is he the one who gets the worst of it? He's not the only child there. The fan theory that holds the most water is that Samuel is the one who Grelod knows. She can break. He is her example. Francois is too smart, and his sarcasm is a shield. Hroar is too defiant, and his animal rage is too unpredictable. Runa is lost in her own world, wrapped in her prayers. But Samuel is soft. He's pliable. He still cries. Grelod, in her sadistic calculus, has identified him as the perfect tool to control the others. She hurts him to show them what she is capable of. He's not just a victim, he's a warning. This is the baseline. This is the before picture for the other children. Before Francois became a cynic, he was Samuel. Before Hroar became a beast, he was Samuel. Before Runa became a zealot, she was Samuel. They are the survivors. Twisted, yes, but they found a way to survive. Samuel is the one who is still drowning. Now we must talk about the other adult in the room, the kind one, Constance Michel. This is our obscure tragic tidbit. Constance is the ultimate failure. She is the enabler. She is, in her own way, just as responsible for Samuel's suffering as Grelod is. She floats through the orphanage, wringing her hands, offering weak platitudes. It's not that bad, she'll lie to you and to herself. Grelod is she's very strict. She just wants the best for them. But Constance knows. She's a victim herself, terrified of Grelod's wrath. But she is an adult. She has the power to walk out, to go to the Jarl, to report the abuse, and she does nothing. For Samuel, this is the final crushing blow. He sees Grelod, the monster, and he sees Constance, the nice one, and he sees that the nice one is useless. He has learned the most terrible lesson a child can. There is no help coming. The monsters are real, and the heroes are cowards. His terror isn't just of the abuser, it's of the absolute total failure of the entire system around him. The Temple of Mara, as we discussed, is silent. The Jarl is blind, and his only protector in the building, Constance, is a human-shaped apology. It's a joke that isn't funny in the slightest. Constance is teaching these children their letters, preparing them for a future they'll never have, all while Grelod is busy destroying their present. The story of Honorhall, however, has a ghost. A child who did get away. Aventus Aretino. He is, in fact, the entire reason the Dragonborn learns about Grelod. Aventus was one of these children. He saw what was happening to Samuel, to Runa, to Hroar. He lived this life, and it broke him so completely that he stole away, travelled all the way to Windhelm and performed the Black Sacrament, setting in motion the quest to have Grelod assassinated. Aventus is what happens when Samuel's fear finally turns into action. Aventus is the boy who decided that if the gods, like Runa, won't help, and the good adults, like Constance, won't help, then he will turn to the void. He will turn to Sithis. He will hire murderers. This is the legacy of Honorhall Orphanage. It is a machine for creating broken people. It creates cynics, beasts, false prophets, and assassins. Samuel is the raw material. Aventus is the finished product. when the Dragonborn answering Aventus's dark prayer finally walks into Honorhall and ends Grelad's reign of terror, the reaction from the children is explosive. Hroar cheers. Runa thanks the divines, not knowing her angel was a paid killer. Francois is simply clinically relieved. But Samuel is just quiet. He has to ask, Is she dead? Is Grelad really gone? He can't process it. His entire world, his entire operating system was based on Hroar. His fear was the only thing that was real, and now the source of it is gone. The relief that washes over him is so profound, so total, that it's almost more painful to watch than the fear was. When you offer to adopt him, he is the most grateful of all. He has no fantasies. He doesn't promise to be a warrior or a wizard. He just wants out. You mean it? I can come with you? I don't have to stay here. He is the last of the Honorhall children, and his story is the most fundamental. He is the quiet victim, the living proof of Grelad's evil, and the ultimate symbol of a system that has failed on every conceivable level. We have finally, mercifully, closed the book on Honorhall Orphanage. We have seen the profound psychological fractures that institutional abuse can create, twisting children into cynics, beasts, and zealots. Now we leave the damp, corrupt city of Riften and travel to a place that could not be more different. We journey west, past Whiterun, to the tiny, idyllic village of Rorikstead. At a glance, Rorikstead is perfect. It is perhaps the most peaceful-looking place in all of Skyrim. The sun always seems to be shining there. The fields are of vibrant, impossible gold, bursting with healthy crops. The air is clean, the inn is cosy, and the people are simple farmers. It is the breadbasket of Whiterun Hold, as its founder Rorik will smugly tell you. It is a postcard, a pastoral dream. But this is Skyrim, and in Skyrim, if something looks too good to be true, it is rotting from the inside out. In the middle of this perfect golden paradise, we find a small dark stain. It is a rundown shack of a farmhouse, and the man who lives there is named Lemkill. It's a bit of an on-the-nose joke from the developers, as the Old Norse Lemkill translates roughly to hateful. And Lemkill is, without a doubt, the most openly, cartoonishly hateful man in the entire game. He's a bitter, abusive drunk, and he has 2 children, twin daughters. Our focus for now is on Sissel. You will find her in the fields working, not playing hide-and-seek like the children of Riverwood, but working. She pulls weeds, she harvests crops, she carries water. She's small, quiet, and she walks with her head down as if she's bracing for a blow. She is, in every sense, a battered child. The core, in-game fact of her life is the relentless daily abuse she suffers at the hands of her father. And unlike Grelad's abuse, which was hidden behind the orphanage walls, Lemkill's cruelty is on full public display. He will walk up to his daughter in the middle of the street and bellow, "You're a lazy, useless girl, get back to work." If you speak to him about his children, he sneers, "They're worthless, good for nothing but work, and they're not even good at that." He reserves a special poisoned vitriol for them. He will tell them, and you, that their mother died giving birth to them, and he blames them for it. "You killed your mother, girl," he'll snarl, "and you'll be the death of me too." He is a monster, a common garden-variety domestic monster, and the entire peaceful town of Rorikstead does nothing. The innkeeper, Juan, says nothing. The farmers, like Ennis and Reldith, say nothing. Rorik, the town's founder, says nothing. They let this happen, every single day, right in front of them. Their silence is its own kind of abuse, but where this abuse has created different kinds of armour in the Honorhall children, Sissel has built something else. She has built hope. She is not a cynic, she is not a beast. She is, against all logic, a good person. She is kind. If you speak to her, she's gentle and shy. She doesn't have a single cruel word to say about anyone, not even her father. She is just sad, and she has a secret. I want to learn magic, she'll whisper when her father is out of earshot. I want to go to the college in Winterhold, far, far away from here. This isn't just a child's fantasy of being a wizard, it's an escape plan. She has identified the one power in Tamriel that could get her away from her father's physical, brute force tyranny. Magic is the opposite of Lemkill. It is intellect, it is potential, it is freedom. she also has another secret. I had a dream, she'll say. There was a good dragon. He was big and scary, but he was nice. He flew me away from here. This is, of course, a reference to the Dragonborn. She is dreaming of her own rescue. Her innate magical sensitivity is manifesting as prophecy. She is, in essence, putting out a psychic distress call, and the Dragonborn has just walked into town to answer it. But what about this town? Why is it so perfect? Why are the crops so bountiful in a frozen land where Lucia and Sofie are starving on the streets? This brings us to the obscure and deeply sinister lore tidbit about Rorikstead. The town is a lie. If you dig around, if you listen to the paranoid ramblings of the farmer Ennis, if you read the in-game book A Tragedy in Black, you start to see the cracks. Rorik didn't just work hard to build this farm. The Creation Club content, The Cause, would later make this explicit, but the hints were always there. Rorik made a deal. He made a pact with a Daedric prince. The soil of Rorikstead is so fertile because it has been blessed by a dark god. The entire town is in effect a quiet, prosperous Daedric cult. They are all in on it. Their peace is not the peace of simple folk. It is the smug, secretive peace of the damned who have traded their souls for good harvests. And in the middle of this town that has sold its soul is Lemkill, a man of pure, simple human evil. And the town tolerates him. Why? Perhaps his rage is an acceptable side effect of the pact. Or maybe they just don't care. His evil is a convenient distraction from their own. This leads to the great fan debate surrounding the twins, nature versus nurture. Sissel has a twin sister, Britte. They are the same age, the same blood, raised in the exact same abusive, toxic household, by the same monstrous father, and yet, Sissel is kind, she is gentle, she is empathetic, she dreams of helping people. Britte, who we will meet in full next, is a monster. She is a carbon copy of her father. She is a vicious, cruel, unrepentant bully. Why? How can two children, raised in the same fire, be forged into such different weapons? Fan theories abound. The simplest is just nature. Sissel was born good, Britte was born mean. But a more compelling theory is that they each inherited a different piece of their parents. Sissel inherited the spirit of her mother, the one we never knew. Perhaps the mother was a kind woman, maybe even a mage herself, and Sissel is her legacy. Britte, on the other hand, is Lemkill's true daughter. She inherited his rage, his bitterness, his capacity for cruelty. But there is a tragic catch to Sissel's story. You can't adopt her, not at first. The Hearthfire expansion, for all its kindness, has a rule. You can only adopt an orphan. And Sissel tragically has a father. A horrible, abusive, hateful father. But a father nonetheless. The game, in its cold procedural logic, presents the player with a dark, unspoken and frankly, horrifying solution. Sissel can only be adopted if Lemkill ceases to be. He is not an essential character. He is not protected by the game's code. A stray arrow, a poorly aimed fireball, a tragic werewolf mauling. And suddenly, Lemkill is no longer a problem. The Dragonborn, the good dragon from Sissel's dream, can make her an orphan. And in this twisted, broken world, making her an orphan is the only way to save her. If Lemkill accidentally dies, Sissel and her sister are shipped off to Honorhall Orphanage. Unless the Dragonborn is there, waiting to intercept them, waiting to offer Sissel the home she has been dreaming of. Sissel's story is one of the most heartbreaking. She's a light in a town that is secretly dark. She's a magical, hopeful soul being crushed by the most mundane evil imaginable. And to save her, the hero of Skyrim has to, just for a moment, become a very, very practical kind of monster. While Sissel turns her gaze inward and upward, to dreams of magic and mythical dragon saviours, her twin sister Britte does the exact opposite. Britte looks at the world around her, at the small, perfect, hateful village of Rorikstead, and she chooses to punch down. She's the other side of the coin, the dark reflection of Sissel's light. If Sissel is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, Britte is a terrifying case study in how that spirit can be poisoned and weaponized. You will find Britte in the same fields as her sister, but she's not working quietly. She's complaining, She's kicking at the dirt, her face fixed in a permanent scowl that is a perfect miniature copy of her father's. If you approach her, you're not met with Sissel's shy, gentle hope. You're met with a blast of pure, unadulterated vinegar. This place is a hole, she'll snap, and my father is a pig. She has all of Lemkil's rage, but none of his physical power. And this is the key to understanding her. She's just as small, just as trapped, and just as beaten as her sister. But her reaction to the trauma is not to dream of escape. Her reaction is to find someone even smaller, someone even weaker, and to transfer her pain directly onto them. The only person in her world who fits that description is Sissel. This is the core in-game fact of Britte's existence. She is a bully, and her primary victim is her own twin. She has learned fundamentally that the world is divided into two classes, the abusers and the abused, the hitters and the hit. And Britte has made a conscious, desperate choice to be a hitter. You can hear it in her voice. She doesn't just bully Sissel, she mimics her father. "Get back to work, Sissel," she will command, her voice a pathetic imitation of Lemkil's drunken bellow. "You're so lazy." It is a heartbreaking, horrifying performance. She is, in essence, trying to become her father. It's a classic, tragic psychological response. If I am just like the abuser, maybe the abuser won't hurt me. Maybe he'll see me as an ally. She's aligning herself with the only power in her household. She's a child desperately trying to align herself with the winner, and in her house, the winner is the monster. Sissel's kindness, her gentleness, her dreams. In Britte's eyes, this is weakness. This is what deserves to be punished. Sissel is everything Britte is terrified of being, the victim. And so, Britte attacks her for it. This brings us back to that central, fascinating fan debate we touched on with Sissel. Nature versus nurture. How can these two children, born from the same womb at the same time, and raised in the exact same toxic environment, be so different? The fan theories are the only thing that can fill this gap. The nature argument is simple. Sissel was born good, Britte was born bad. But the nurture argument is far more compelling. This leads to an obscure and often overlooked piece of Tamrielic lore. Let's think about their mother. We know she died in childbirth. Lemkil throws this in their faces. You killed your mother. In Tamriel, childbirth is not just medically difficult. It's a spiritually fraught and incredibly dangerous event. The mortality rate is staggering. We have no great healers in Rorikstead, no Temple of Kinnereth. All that fertile, Daedric-blessed soil did nothing to save one woman from a perfectly mundane, bloody, and agonizing death. Lemkil's hatred, then, is born from a very real tragedy. But the twins' reaction to this inherited guilt is what defines them. Sissel internalizes the guilt and transforms it into a gentle, mournful, and healing spirit. She is her mother's daughter, the one who was lost. Britte, on the other hand, internalizes the guilt and lets it curdle into a defensive rage. She is her father's daughter. She hears, "You killed your mother," and her response is to get angry. Angry at the accusation, angry at her father for making it, angry at the world for being so unfair, and perhaps secretly angry at herself. And that rage has to go somewhere. It goes, as it always does, to the safest, weakest target, Sissel. The fan community is, as a result, deeply divided on Britte. Is she redeemable? If the Dragonborn, after committing that grim, necessary murder of Lemkil, decides to adopt both twins, what happens? In the game, of course, the mechanics are simple. She moves into Bree's home, says thanks Pa, and her personality is sanded flat by the game's code. But in a lore sense, what have you done? You've adopted a fully formed abuser in training. You've brought a little Lemkil into your home. The dominant and more tragic fan theory is that Britte is already a lost cause. The cycle of abuse is complete. She has learned her lessons too well. She will grow up to be just as bitter and hateful as her father. The counter theory, the hopeful one, is that removing her from the abusive environment would allow her to unlearn. That her cruelty is a performance, a suit of armour, and in a safe home, she might finally be able to take it off. It is telling that, for many players, Britte is the child they leave behind. They will save Sissel, her good, kind, magical sister. But Britte, Britte's too much like the monster they just had to kill, and just like her sister, the tragedy is that the system prevents you from saving her. You, the Dragonborn, the Legate of the Empire, the Thane of every hold, cannot walk into Rorikstead and report Lemkill for child abuse. You cannot present evidence. You cannot use your vast political power to have the children removed. The law, the code of the game, protects the abuser's right to his property. To save Britte, to even attempt to see if she is redeemable, you must first become a murderer. Sissel's story is a tragedy of a good person in a bad place. Britte's is the far more complex and perhaps more realistic tragedy of a bad place creating a new, bad person. She is the echo of Lemkill's hate, a child who learned all too well that in the world of Rorikstead, kindness gets you nothing but a kick. Power, even the petty, borrowed power of a bully, is the only thing that matters. We have walked the dark, twisted paths of Rorikstead, bearing witness to a father's hate and the two fractured souls, Sissel and Britte, that it created. We saw how that single, toxic source could create both a gentle dreamer and a vicious bully. Now, our journey takes us back to where we began, to the seemingly safe, prosperous heart of Skyrim, the city of Whiterun. When we were last here, our focus was on Lucia, the ghost in the alley, a child abandoned to the cold stones of poverty. But Whiterun holds another kind of childhood tragedy, one that is not about a lack of septims, but a profound and devastating lack of anything else. Her name is Braith. She's a young Redguard girl, and unlike the quiet, fading Lucia, you will know Braith is near. You will hear her. She's a small, arrogant, loud-mouthed tempest, and she has a favourite target. You see her in the market or near the Gildergreen, relentlessly terrorising a small Nord boy named Lars Battleborn. "Give me your money, Battleborn," she'll shout, shoving him. "You're a weakling, you're a milksop. Why won't you fight back?" This is the core in-game fact of Braith's life. She is a bully. She is, in almost every way, a Whiterun-specific echo of Britte from Rorikstead. Both are young girls who have learned that power, or at least the performance war of power, is the only currency that matters. But where Britte's cruelty was forged in the fire of direct, hateful physical abuse, Braith's is the product of a much quieter and perhaps more insidious poison. Total, crushing, emotional neglect. Braith is not an orphan. She has two parents. They are alive, they are well, they live in a respectable house, and they are, in their own special ways, two of the worst parents in Tamriel. Her father is Amren, a Redguard warrior. He's not a bad man. In fact, he's a loving one, at least in theory. If you speak to him, he will tell you all about his family's lost sword, a blade his father gave him. He's obsessed with finding it. He wants to retrieve this ancestral relic so he can, in his own words, pass it on to my daughter, Braith. And herein lies the joke, the dark, bitter, profoundly stupid irony of Amren. He is so completely consumed with finding a symbol of his family's legacy, a hunk of sharpened steel, that he is totally and completely ignoring the actual legacy standing right in front of him. His daughter. He spends his days training in the yard, talking to adventurers, planning his quest. And never, not once, does he spend a single second parenting his child. He wants to give her a sword, but he will not give her his time. But Amren, for all his flaws, is a masterpiece of parental virtue compared to Braith's mother, Sappha. Sappha is a Redguard woman who you will find in their home, sitting on a bench, reading a book, all day, every day. She never moves, she never does chores, she never interacts with her family, she just reads. She is the physical embodiment of emotional absence. If Braith approaches her, Sappha is dismissive. "Go away, can't you see I'm reading?" If the Dragonborn approach her, she is just as cold. "I'm busy." Braith is a child with a warrior father who is never present, and a scholar mother who is present, but emotionally mummified. She is a ghost in her own home. She is starving, not for food, but for attention. This is why she bullies Lars. It is a performance. It is a scream. It is the only way she knows how to get a reaction from the world. When she shoves Lars and he yelps, it is a response. When the other adults shout, "Leave that boy alone, Braith," it is a response. Being yelled at, being hated, is infinitely better than the cold, silent, intellectual void of her mother's indifference. She's a child setting fires just so someone will finally look at her. This brings us to a well-known community debate. Does Braith secretly like Lars Battleborn? This is the classic pigtail pulling theory, that her bullying is just a twisted, childish and incredibly dysfunctional form of affection. And it's a very compelling theory. She has no model for healthy interaction. Her father's model is aggression and strength. Her mother's model is cold, verbal dismissal. So what happens when Braith wants to interact with a boy she finds interesting? She combines the two models. She's aggressive, like her father, and she's verbally dismissive, like her mother. The result is, you're a weakling, battleborn, give me your money. Lars, of course, is the perfect target. He's a member of the Battleborn clan, one of the two most powerful families in the city. He is rich, he is protected, and he is, by his own admission, a milksop. He won't fight back, he just cries and pays her off. For Braith, this is perfect. She gets to win, she gets to be the strong one like her father, and she gets a reaction. This also ties into an obscure but culturally significant piece of lore, Amren's obsession with his Redguard heritage. Redguard society is famously built on ancestor worship, lineage, and honouring the past. His quest for the sword is not just about a weapon, it's about him clinging to his identity as a Redguard in a foreign Nord city. It is a profound, tragic irony that in his desperate attempt to honour his father, he is failing his daughter. He is so wrapped up in the Redguard past that he is completely failing the Redguard future. And finally, we have the tragedy of the Dragonborn's powerlessness. Braith is not an orphan. You cannot adopt her. You cannot save her. Her parents are right there, failing her in plain sight. You can, in a bitter twist, actually help her father. You can go retrieve his stupid sword for him. And what happens when you do? He's grateful. He gives you some gold. And nothing changes. Braith is still a bully. Saphir is still reading. Amren has his sword, but his family is just as broken. Braith's story is a profound tragedy of emotional desolation. She's a child who has everything Lucia does not. A home, food, 2 living parents, and yet she is just as abandoned. She's screaming for help in the only way she knows how, and the entire city, including her own family, has just decided to label her a problem child and walk away. And from the cold, silent, emotional void of Braith's home life in Whiterun, our narrative now takes us down a short, familiar road. We head south, following the bend of the White River, into the lush, autumnal forests of the Rift. We are going to the first true town most adventurers ever see, the place that serves as the world's tutorial level, Riverwood. It is, by all accounts, a perfect little village. It's nestled in a valley, protected on all sides by mountains and a flowing river. It has a tavern, a blacksmith, a general store, and a lumber mill that forms the backbone of its simple, prosperous economy. The people are, for the most part, kind. Gerda, the mill owner, is a strong matriarch. Alva, the blacksmith, is a dedicated family man. It is in every way that Rorikstead pretended to be, a simple, idyllic, and healthy community. And in the middle of this Norman Rockwell painting of a village, we find Frodnar. Frodnar is the son of Hod and Aerid, who run the lumber mill for Gerda. He's a young Nord boy, and he has, on paper, the single best childhood in all of Skyrim. He has 2 parents who are present, employed, and seemingly loving. He lives in a safe town. He has food to eat, a warm bed, and he even has a pet dog, a scruffy mutt named Stump. He has everything that Lucia, Sofie, Alesan, and the Honorhall children would literally kill for. And what does he do with this perfect pastoral privileged life? He dedicates himself with startling focus to being an absolute menace. The core in-game fact of Frodnar's existence is his identity as a prankster. He is the archetypal village rascal. You see him sprinting through the town's single dirt road, often with Stump at his heels, loudly announcing his malicious intentions. "I'm going to play a prank on Alvor," he'll shout to no one in particular. Or maybe Gerda. She's nice. She'll be an easy target. There's an immediate and slightly chilling edge to his words. He doesn't just want to prank people, he's already calculating who the easy targets are. He's a child, and he's already developing a predator's mindset for social weakness. But his most famous and most revealing interaction is not with a person, it's with an animal. The animal, the Riverwood chicken. We all know this chicken. It is the feathered sword fodder that has, through its tragic 1 septim bounty death, ended more good guy playthroughs than all the Daedric princes combined. It is the game's very first moral test. Frodnar has his own relationship with this chicken. You can watch him. He will run up to it, full tilt, and shout, "Rah!" just to watch it squawk in terror and flee. He thinks this is the height of comedy. He is, in a very real, tangible way, a boy whose primary source of entertainment is the terrorizing of a helpless animal. This is unsettling. We've seen Britte, whose cruelty was a direct learned response to her father's abuse. We've seen Braith, whose bullying was a desperate, flailing scream for attention. Frodner's cruelty has no such excuse. He's not a product of abuse. He's not a product of neglect. He is, it seems, a product of permission. He's just allowed to be this way. This leads directly to the central community debate surrounding Frodner. Is he just a normal, boisterous kid being a boy, or is he a budding sociopath? The Frodner is Fine camp argues that he's simply bored. Riverwood is a tiny, tiny town. There is literally nothing for a high-energy child to do. The only other kid is Dorothy, who just wants to play boring hide-and-seek. So, he makes his own fun. The chicken is just a game. He's just a kid. A bit of a jerk maybe, but not evil. The other, much darker fan theory is that Frodner is a product of his culture. Think about when we meet him. He's growing up in the middle of a brutal civil war. His village is fiercely pro-Stormcloak. Gerda's brother is Ralof. He hears the casual, violent bravado of the Nords every single day. He'll even parrot it. "I'm not afraid of any Imperials or Stormcloaks," he'll boast. I'll fight 'em." Frodner is absorbing the toxic masculinity and warrior-obsessed culture of Skyrim, and it is teaching him that strength is the only virtue. And how does a small boy with no real power prove he is strong? He finds something weaker than himself, a chicken or a nice person like Gerda, and he exerts his power over them. His pranks aren't games, they are practice. He's a little Viking in training, and what he's training to do is to be a bully. This is where we find our obscure and deeply revealing lore tidbit. It's his dog. His dog is named Stump. Think about that name. It's not Lucky, it's not Shadow, it's not Biter, it's Stump. It's a blunt, ugly, unaffectionate name. It's the name you give an object, not a companion. It implies something is broken or cut off. While the dog's in-game model is whole, the name is a choice. It reveals a profound lack of empathy in its owner. It suggests that Frodner sees his best friend as a thing, a tool, a stump. This small, easily missed detail is a flashing red warning light about this child's entire personality. His parents, Hod and Erid, are the final piece of the puzzle. They are not cruel, like Lemkill. They are not absent, like Braith's parents. They are just simple. They are dull, low energy, and completely unengaged. Hod will gruffly mumble about the mill. Erid will offer a few pleasantries. They are not equipped to handle a high-energy, intelligent, and morally drifting child. Their parenting style is to just let him run. And he is running all right. He's running full speed into becoming a terrible person. Like Braith and Britte, Frodner is unadoptable. He has a good home. The system cannot save a child who is not, by the letter of the law, an orphan. His story is, in many ways, more disturbing than Lucia's. Lucia's tragedy is one of circumstance. You can fix it by giving her a house and a septim. Frodner's is a tragedy of character. He is what normal Skyrim produces. He is the boy who has been given everything, and has chosen for his own entertainment to be cruel. He is the joke that isn't funny, a small-town boy who is, in 20 years, probably going to be the one nailing a farmer's head to a post and calling it a jolly good prank. In the very same normal village of Riverwood, just across the small dirt path from where Frodner is busy terrorizing the local poultry, we find the other side of privilege. We find the control group. We find a child who has been given the same perfect, pastoral, safe upbringing, and has somehow turned out to be a decent, normal, and well-adjusted child. We step away from the lumber mill and walk towards the comforting, rhythmic clang, clang, clang of the blacksmith's hammer. Here, in the smoke and heat of the forge, we find Dorothy. Dorothy is the daughter of Olvor, the imperial supporting blacksmith, and his wife, Sigrid. Like Frodner, she has everything. A warm home, 2 loving parents, a safe community. She is, on paper, Frodner's exact twin in circumstance, and yet she could not be more different. While Frodner is a chaotic, selfish, noisy ball of destructive energy, Dorothy is quiet. She is calm. She is helpful. You will often find her near the forge watching her father work. Sometimes she'll be sweeping the smithy, other times she'll be delivering a message to her mother. But most of the time she just wants to play a game. This is the core in-game fact of Dorothy's existence, and it is the perfect counterpoint to Frodnar's. Her game is not, let's terrify a weaker creature. Her game is hide and seek. Do you want to play hide and seek? She'll ask the Dragonborn, a heavily armed and armoured stranger who just stumbled out of a dragon attack. I'll count. You hide. The innocence of this is staggering. The world is literally ending. Dragons are returning, a civil war is raging, and this child, in this protected little valley, just wants to play a harmless, simple game. It is, in its own way, the most normal, most childlike behaviour we have seen on our entire journey. She's not a cynic, not a beast, not a bully, not an orphan. She is, against all odds, just a kid. This, of course, creates a fascinating contrast with Frodnar. This is the other side of that nature versus nurture debate. They are both nurtured in the exact same environment, therefore the difference must be nature, right? But the fan community has a more nuanced take. The difference isn't the village, it's the parents. Frodnar's parents, Hod and Irid, are passive. They are dull. They let him run wild. Dorothy's parents, Alvor and Sigrid, are the opposite. Alvor is one of the most principled, engaged and hard-working fathers in the game. He is constantly teaching, constantly working. He is the heart of the village, and he is actively parenting his daughter. If you talk to Dorte, she doesn't just talk about games, she talks about her future. I'm going to be a blacksmith just like my papa, she'll say with quiet pride. I'm already learning. I can make nails. Lots of nails. This is the key. She isn't just running amok, she has a purpose. She has a role model. She's being given a trade, an identity, and a sense of responsibility. Frodnar, with his lazy, simple-minded parents, has none of that. His identity is the boy who runs. Dorothy's identity is the apprentice. And this brings us to an obscure but vital piece of lore, the role of the blacksmith in Nord society. A blacksmith isn't just a merchant who sells iron daggers. In a land like Skyrim, the blacksmith is the soul of a community's survival. Alvor is not just making nails for Dorothy to practice on. He's making the steel swords for the guards, the arrowheads for the hunters, the armour that keeps the bandits at bay, and the hinges that hold the doors shut against the cold. He is Riverwood's defence. Dorothy, by wanting to be a smith, isn't just choosing a job. She's choosing to inherit the most sacred and vital responsibility in her entire village. She's choosing to be a protector. Frodnar, by contrast, chooses to be a menace. But there is a shadow hanging over this perfect, innocent picture. It's Alvor himself. Alvor is not just a blacksmith. He is an imperial supporter. His nephew is Hadvar, the imperial soldier who helped the Dragonborn escape Helgen. Alvor is, in a town that is ostensibly pro-Stormcloak, thanks to Gerda and Ralof, the sole, vocal, imperial presence. This leads to the central fan debate about Dorothy. Is her innocence real? Or is it a fragile temporary bubble that is about to be violently burst? Riverwood is the very first place the main quest touches. The Dragonborn, fresh from Helgen, runs there to warn Alvor or Gerda about the dragon. This means that Dorothy, this innocent child who just wants to play hide and seek, is one of the very first people in Skyrim to learn that the myths are real and the end of the world is nigh. How does a child who can make nails process the fact that a world-eating dragon has just incinerated a town 10 miles away? How does her simple, binary world of Papa is good and Frodnar is annoying handle the complex, bloody reality of a civil war that is about to pit her father against his own neighbours? The Shattered Innocence fan theory posits that Dorothy is, in fact, one of the most tragic children in the game, because we are meeting her in the final seconds of her childhood. The arrival of the Dragonborn is the bell tolling for her simple life. From this moment on, her world will be one of soldiers, dragons, and fear. Her father's forge will no longer be a place of creation, it will be a place of war production. It's a chilling thought. We, the player, are the harbingers of her trauma. It's a bit of a grim joke. The hero arrives, and the first thing they do is ruin a little girl's perfect life with news of the apocalypse. Like Frodnar and Braith, Dorothy is unadoptable. The game's code sees 2 loving parents and a warm home and declares her safe. but she is perhaps in more imminent danger than any of them. Lucia is cold, but she is in a fortified city. Sofie is freezing, but she is far from the front lines. Dorothy is sitting on ground zero. Her village is the crossroads for both the Civil War and the Dragon War. Her story is the tragedy of normalcy. She is the before picture for all of Skyrim. She's the innocence that the rest of the game is about to spend 100 hours destroying, and she just wants to play one last game of hide and seek. We leave behind the deceptive, fragile piece of Riverwood, where the greatest immediate dangers are a misbehaving child and the news of a dragon. Dorothy's innocence, while precious, feels like a lit candle in a hurricane, a tragedy waiting to happen. Frodner's cruelty, a tragedy already in progress. We now travel east, back into the brooding autumnal forests of the Rift. Our destination is a town that is, in many ways, defined by a single, monolithic fact. It is the last stop. We are going to Everstead. This small, damp and perpetually foggy village is huddled at the very base of the throat of the world. It exists for one reason and one reason only, to serve as the final checkpoint for the pilgrims, the brave, the desperate, or the foolish, who intend to climb the 7,000 steps to High Hrothgar. It is a town built on waiting. It is a town that feels transient, a place of last-second prayers and purchased supplies. And it is famously a town with a ghost problem. Shroud Hearth Barrow, one of the largest and most haunted tombs in the area, looms over the village, its spectral inhabitants occasionally wandering too close to the living. It's a gloomy, tired and deeply unsettling place. And in this town we find another kind of exhaustion, a small, human-shaped one. His name is Gralnach. At first glance he's just another working boy. You'll see him near the Villamere Inn chopping wood, his small arms struggling with the weight of the axe, or you'll find him inside sweeping the same patch of dusty floor, his movements slow and mechanical. He is not playing, he is not dreaming, he is labouring. This is the core in-game fact of Gralnach's life. He is, like Alesan and Blaze before him, a child slave in all but name. But his master is not a callous innkeeper or a forgetful farmer. His master is his own father. His father is Leontius Salvius, the owner and proprietor of the Villamere Inn. And Leontius is, to put it kindly, a complete and utter wreck. He is a bitter, lazy and perpetually drunk man. You will never see him working. You will never see him managing his business. You will see him on a bar stool, cup in hand, complaining. And his favourite thing to complain about? His son. That boy, Gralnach, he'll slur to you, a perfect stranger. He's lazy, good for nothing, barely does a lick of work. This is of course a spectacular piece of projection. It's a dark, bitter joke. Leontius, the man who does nothing, is accusing the child who does everything of being lazy. Gralnach runs the inn, he chops the wood that heats the building, he sweeps the floors that his father and the other drunks dirty. He is the sole, unpaid employee of a business his father is drinking into the ground. If you speak to Gralnach, he is not defiant. He is not angry. He is just gone. He is a shell. "I have to work," he'll say, his voice flat and colourless. Father gets angry if I don't work. He's a child who has been so thoroughly beaten down, so completely steeped in this toxic, hopeless environment that he has accepted it as his reality. His world is work, and his father is anger. This is where the story takes a truly sinister and obscure turn. We must talk about the Villamere Inn. We must talk about Gralnach's mother. The name Villamere Inn should ring a cold, distant bell. We heard it all the way back in Section 1, in a different city, from a different child, from Lucia. Lucia, the orphan sleeping in the alley in Whiterun. She told us her story. Her mother died, and her aunt and uncle from Everstead came to Whiterun, sold her mother's farm, stole all the money, and abandoned her to the streets. Her aunt, Lucia said, was named Mila. And where did Mila work? The Villamere Inn. The game's data confirms this horrifying, tangled web. Gralnach's father is the drunkard Leontius, and his mother? His mother is Mila. Gralnach is the son of the very woman who condemned her own niece, Lucia, to a life of begging and exposure. This household isn't just dysfunctional. It is a black hole of human decency. It is a family unit built on a foundation of alcoholism, laziness, greed, and a cruelty so profound it extends to their own blood. This recontextualizes everything. Grelnach is not just the victim of one abusive drunk, he is the child of two monsters. His father is a lazy, abusive alcoholic. His mother is a cold, calculating woman who, given the chance, will steal an inheritance from a child and leave her to freeze. What kind of a home is this? This is the fan community's most tragic debate. What is it like in that house? We see Leontius's public abuse. We can only imagine the private hell. We can imagine Mila, her heart a cold stone, looking at her own son with the same callous indifference she showed her niece. Grelnach is not a son to them. He is an asset. He is a free labourer. He is the engine that keeps their failing, miserable lives running, and they hate him for it. Why are they like this? The easy answer is that they are just bad people. But the Ivarstead setting offers a more supernatural, if perhaps more forgiving, fan theory. The town is haunted. Leontius is drinking himself to death at the foot of a barrow that is spilling ghosts. Perhaps he's not just a drunk. Perhaps he's a man terrified. Perhaps he drinks to numb the fear of the shades he sees in the fog. Perhaps Mila's heart has been frozen, not by greed, but by the same supernatural dread. It's a poetic idea, but it's almost certainly wrong. It's the joke, really. The Dragonborn can and often does clear out Shroudhearth Barrow. You can end the haunting, put the spirits to rest, and make Ivarstead safe. And when you return to the Villamere Inn, Leontius is still there, on his stool, drinking. He's still complaining about his lazy son. He wasn't haunted by spirits. He was just a terrible, lazy man. His evil is purely disappointingly mundane. And Grelnach, like Braith, like Frodnar, like Dorothy, is unadoptable. He has two living parents. To save him, the Dragonborn would be faced with the Rorikstead problem, but squared. You wouldn't just have to murder one abusive father. You would have to murder both of his parents. You would have to orphan him to kill both the alcoholic Leontius and the cold-hearted Mila. Faced with this grim, bloody, and morally bankrupt solution, almost every player just leaves. Grelnach's story is the tragedy of the trap. He has no hope. He has no magic dreams like Sissel. He has no one to even bully. He is utterly, completely, and hopelessly stuck. He is a small boy in a foggy town, chopping wood for his drunken father and his monstrous mother, waiting for a future that will, in all likelihood, be a perfect, miserable copy of his present. We have now seen the dark, mundane, and soul-crushing despair of Ivarstead, where a child like Grelnach is slowly ground into dust by the simple, human evils of his alcoholic father and his cold-hearted mother. It is a slow, foggy, and inevitable demise of the spirit. We now trade this spiritual rot for a much more immediate and far more brutal form of oppression. Our journey takes us to the far west, to the very edge of Skyrim. We are entering the Reach. This land is not the green, rolling tundra of Whiterun, or the golden, autumnal beauty of the Rift. The Reach is a land of stone. It is a place of jagged, impossible mountains that claw at the sky, and deep, dark valleys where the sun seems to fear to tread. The very air feels ancient and angry. This is the home of the Forsworn, the native tribes of the Reach, who wage a relentless, bloody, and desperate war of terror against the Nords who stole their land. And presiding over this entire blood-soaked landscape is the city of Markarth, a place carved from a mountain, built on Dwemer ruins, and run by a dynasty of silver barons who are, in their own way, as cold and hard as the stone around them. We are not going to the city, not yet. We are stopping just outside its gates, at the source of its wealth. We are going to Left Hand Mine. This is not a town. It is not a village. It is a functional, filthy industrial operation. It has a smelter, a tanning rack, and a single, long, squalid building that houses its entire workforce, the miners' barracks. The air smells of sulphur, sweat, and cheap ale. And it is here, in this overcrowded, joyless longhouse, that we find Aerith. She's a young Nord girl, and like Frodnar and Dorothy, she has two living parents who are with her. But her life is not one of privilege, and it is certainly not one of safety. The core, in-game fact of Aerith's existence is her home. She lives in the barracks. This is not a house. It is a single, long, open room, filled with rickety wooden cots, a few tables, and a central fire pit. She lives, eats, and sleeps surrounded by the entire mining crew, a dozen exhausted, dirty, and often drunk strangers. She has no privacy. She has no bed of her own, just a cot in the corner. Her childhood is being spent in the middle of a flophouse, listening to the coughing, snoring and complaining of a dozen grown men. Her parents are Daigre and Parvo, and they are the reason she's here. They are not independent artisans like Alvor. They are not small business owners like Hod. They are, in the simplest terms, trapped. Parvo, her father, will tell you his story with a kind of weary resignation. "Can't leave," he'll mumble, "not till I pay my debt." This is the crux of their lives. Parvo is in debt to the mine owner, a surly Nord named Skaggy Scarface. This debt is a chain. Parvo, Daigure, and by extension Erith, are indentured servants. They are slaves to a ledger. Erith's own dialogue confirms this. She is a child who understands economics in the most brutal way possible. "Papa says we have to stay," she'll say, her voice as flat and grey as the stone around her. He owes Skaggy money. She doesn't have dreams of being a blacksmith or a mage. She has the grim, adult understanding that her entire family is property. This brings us to an obscure but vital piece of law, the economic system of the Reach. This entire hold runs on debt slavery. The great Silverblood family who rules Markarth perfected this system. They own the other mine, Sidna Mine, which is also the city's prison. They work their prisoners to death, literally. Skaggy Scarface, the owner of Left Hand Mine, is just a petty small-time imitator of this same monstrous system. This is the central fan debate surrounding Erith. What is Parvo's debt? The game never, ever specifies. Was it a gambling loss? Did he borrow money for food? Did Daigre get sick and need a potion? The most popular and most sinister fan theory is that the debt is designed to be unpayable, that Skaggy, like the Silverbloods, grub-stakes his miners. He charges them for their food, he charges them for their tools, he charges them rent for their cot in the squalid barracks, and he pays them just less than this amount. Parvo is not paying down his debt. He is digging himself deeper into it with every swing of his pickaxe. This means Erith is not just watching her parents work, she's watching them serve a life sentence for the crime of being poor, and as if this crushing systemic oppression were not enough, there is the other, more immediate threat, the Forsworn. Left Hand Mine is not in a safe valley like Riverwood. It is in the heart of the Reach. It is a high-value, poorly defended target in the middle of an active, brutal war zone. The Forsworn are not a myth here. They are a daily, bloody reality. In fact, the player can bring this war directly to Erith's doorstep. During the Forsworn conspiracy quest, your investigation leads you to this mine, and shortly after you leave, a band of Forsworn agents, led by a man named Eltris, attacks the mine, murdering the guard and several of the miners. It's a horrifying, dark and unavoidable joke. You, the hero, in your quest for justice, are the direct cause of a terrorist attack on a civilian target. You are the one who brings the Briarhearts and the Antlerhelms down on this camp, and if Parvo or Daigre are caught in the crossfire, if they die in that attack you caused, suddenly Erith is an orphan, and like so many others, she is unadoptable. The game sees her two living parents and calls her safe. But she is, without question, in one of the most dangerous situations in all of Skyrim. She's a child living in a squalid, overcrowded barracks, owned by a petty tyrant in a place that is, at any moment, about to be overrun by a guerrilla army. Her story is not a tragedy of malice like Lemkill's. It is not one of neglect like Braith's. It is not even one of simple poverty like Lucia's. Erith's is the tragedy of inherited bondage. Her future is not her own. Her future is to wait until she is strong enough to hold a pickaxe, and then to take her father's place on the ledger. She was born into a prison, and the walls are made of stone. The ore that Erith's family breaks their backs to dig out of the ground at Left Hand Mine has to go somewhere. It follows the road, hauled by cart, and is brought to the great stone city that consumes all the wealth of the Reach. We have arrived in Markarth. This city is, in a word, breathtaking. It is a monument to a dead race, a fortress carved into a canyon, with towering waterfalls cascading down its stone face, driving the ancient Dwemer mechanisms that still groan and whir beneath the streets. It is a city of verticality, of stone bridges, and of a cold, indifferent and brutal beauty. But the first thing you notice when you pass through the main gates is not the architecture. It is the sound, and it is the smell. It is the roar of the smelter, and the acrid metallic tang of hot slag and coal smoke, And right there, at the very entrance to the city, toiling away at this giant, dangerous machine, is Hroar. He is a young Nord boy, his face and clothes permanently stained with a layer of black soot. He is, like Gralnak and Alesan, a child labourer. He stands beside the roaring furnace, the heat baking his face, his job to help his father manage the flow of ore and the pouring of the ingots. It is hot, dirty, and profoundly dangerous work. A single splash of molten metal, a moment of lapsed attention, and his childhood would be over, replaced by a lifetime of agonizing scars. This is the core, in-game fact of Hroar's life. He works the smelter, and he works it with his father, a man named Hroar. At first glance, this looks like a mirror of Alvor and Dorothy in Riverwood. A father passing on the family trade, a hard-working boy learning a craft. It has the shape of a healthy, functioning family unit, but this is Markarth, and in Markarth, every shape is a lie. If you talk to Hroar, his resignation is palpable. "I work the smelter with my father," he'll say, his voice as dull as unpolished iron. It's hot and dirty, but it's a living. There is no pride here. There is no joy like Dorothy's. There is just the grim, weary acceptance of a 9-to-5. The truth of his situation is not at the smelter. It's across the market, in the dark, pungent confines of the local apothecary, the Hag's Cure. This is where his mother, Muri, works. His parents are not together. They are separated, a fact of life that is surprisingly and depressingly modern. But why? Why are they apart? The answer is not at the smelter, and it's not at the apothecary. It's up the stairs, in the large, comfortable, well-furnished home of Lisbeth, the owner of the Arnleif & Sons Trading Company. Hroar, Hroar's father, is no longer living with his wife and son. He has moved in with Lisbeth. This is not a subtle arrangement. Hroar, a simple, sweaty, low-class smelter worker, has abandoned his family to become the live-in lover of one of the city's wealthiest and somewhat older merchants. It is, in its own way, the most spectacular act of upward social mobility in the entire game. Hroar didn't use his speech skill to get rich, he used other assets. It's the one, dark, bitter joke of Hroar's entire story. His father is, for all intents and purposes, a kept man. This, naturally, is the central raging fan debate surrounding this family. Is Hroar just a gold digger? Is he the single worst father in Skyrim? The evidence is overwhelming. He has left his wife, Muri, a young, beautiful but poor alchemist assistant, and his own son to live a life of comfort. He has traded his family for a soft bed, good food, and a cut of the silver trade. And the true psychological horror of Hroar's life is this: he still has to work with him. Every single day, Hroar has to show up to this hot, miserable, back-breaking job and stand next to the man who abandoned him. He is not just his son, he is his co-worker. Imagine the silence. Imagine the suffocating, unspoken tension. He has to watch his father, Hroar, sweat for a few hours, and then watch that same man wipe the soot off his face, walk across the market and disappear into the home of his new, wealthy girlfriend. While Hroar, where does Hroar go? He goes to sleep in the squalid warrens, the city's slum, or perhaps on a cold bedroll in the underfurnished home above the Hag's Cure with his mother. He is a child labourer, and his boss is in effect his deadbeat dad. Now let's add the obscure lore tidbit that turns this family drama into a nightmare. Where is this smelter? It's in the main Markarth marketplace. This is not a safe, quiet plaza. This is, without a doubt, the single most dangerous high-tension piece of real estate in the Reach. This marketplace is ground zero for the Forsworn conspiracy quest. It is the exact spot where the player, upon first entering the city, witnesses a brutal public assassination. Waylin, a Forsworn agent posing as a simple Breton, pulls a shiv and murders a woman named Margaret in broad daylight. The city guards swarm, blades are drawn, and a civilian is bled out on the stone pavement. All of this feet away from where Ryan is working. This is not a what if, this is a when. Hroar's office is an active, hot terrorist battleground. He is not just dealing with the psychological trauma of a broken home, he's doing it while literally dodging daggers and watching people get murdered. The corruption of Markarth is total. It's not just the Silverblood family running their prison mine, it's in every transaction. Hroar's romance is a corrupt transaction. Lisbeth, his new lover, is not a clean merchant. She's deeply enmeshed in the city's bloody politics. Her quest for the Dragonborn involves retrieving a shipment that was, in fact, stolen by the Forsworn. She is a part of the system that is causing the war. Hroar didn't just find a sugar mama, he slept his way into a political conspiracy. Hroar is trapped in the middle of it all. He is unadoptable. He has 2 living parents. His mother Muri is struggling. His father Hroar is thriving. His future is to keep shoveling ore, to keep breathing in the toxic smoke, to watch his father live a life of comfort, all while trying not to get knifed by a forsworn agent. He is, in every sense, a child of Markarth, forged in stone, tempered in fire, and trapped by a system of greed he is too small to ever break. The hard, metallic clang of Hroar's smelter and the suffocating stone of Markarth now fade behind us. We travel east, leaving the city of blood and silver, but we do not leave the Reach. We journey into the hills, into the wild, open and dangerous lands that border Whiterun hold. The map here is sparse, dotted with forsworn camps and ancient forgotten ruins. It is a lonely road. And on this road, we find a lonely building, the old Hroar Inn. It is not a town. It is not a settlement. It is a single, ancient, timber and stone lodge, standing defiant against the wind and the wilderness. It is a place of history, a place for mercenaries and travellers to rest their heads for a night before plunging back into the dangers of the Reach. The air here smells of old wood, stale mead, and something else, something ancient and restless. And here, in this isolated, creaking monument to the past, we find our final child. His name is Skuli. Skuli is the son of Adis, the inn's owner, and at first glance he seems fine. He's not sleeping in a barn. He's not begging in the streets. He's not toiling at a forge. He's working, yes, but he's working indoors, sweeping the floor, taking drink orders, and cleaning up after the rough-looking adventurers who rent the rooms. But watch him. He's not just working like Doughty, full of pride and purpose. He is fretting. His movements are quick, nervous and anxious. He's a small boy wrapped in a profound, adult-sized blanket of pure anxiety. The source of this anxiety is not hard to find. It is his mother, Edis. Edis is, by any objective measure, the worst innkeeper in Skyrim. She's abrasive, lazy, and openly rude to her customers. What do you want? She'll snap at you. A room? Fine. 10 septims. There is no warmth, no hospitality. She sits on her stool, nursing a drink, and glares at the world. Skuli is not her son. He is her damage control manager. He is the one who hurries over to placate a customer his mother has just insulted. He is the one who actually delivers the food, cleans the rooms, and sweeps the floor. He's a child who is, in all but name, running an entire high-traffic inn, all while his mother, the legal owner, sits and stews. This is the core, in-game fact of his life. Skuli is a child who has been forced to become the adult. His is not the tragedy of physical abuse, but of profound, crushing, emotional abdication. He is a child manager, the sole person responsible for a failing family business. And this business is not just any business. This is the Old Hroar Inn, and the Old Hroar Inn is, famously, haunted. This is not the generalised malevolent haunting of Ivarstead. This is a specific, famous and recurring apparition. If the Dragonborn rents the room that once belonged to Tiber Septim and sleeps in the bed, they will be woken in the middle of the night by a ghost. The ghost of Old Hroar. This spirit, who believes the Dragonborn is his old commander, Hjalti, or Tiber Septim, will beg you to find his long-lost sword, the one he lost in the battle that made this place famous. Now, put yourself in Skuli's small shoes. He is not just running an inn for a lazy bitter mother. He is running a haunted inn. He is living in a building where the ghosts of ancient warriors literally manifest and bother the guests. Imagine the customer complaints. My mead was cold, the bed was lumpy, and a spectral warrior woke me up demanding a sword. This is Skuli's daily reality. It's a dark, bitter joke. He's the only one taking the job seriously, and his job includes dealing with the paranormal. This leads naturally to the central fan debate. What is wrong with Edis? Why is she like this? Is she just a bad person, like Lemkill or Leontius? The community has a few powerful theories. The most common one is the question of Scully's father. He is, as with so many of these children, conspicuously absent. The Old Hrolden Inn is a classic one-night stop for mercenaries, soldiers and adventurers. The most popular theory is that Scully's father was one of them, a charming, silver-tongued warrior who spent a night, made some promises, and then vanished, leaving Adis pregnant, alone, and the sole owner of this crumbling haunted lodge. In this light, her bitterness is not just random malice. It is a profound, festering wound, and Scully is the living, walking, working-age reminder of her greatest mistake. She doesn't just see a son, she sees the man who abandoned her. And what about this inn? This is where we find our obscure, fascinating piece of lore. The Old Hrolden Inn is not just old, it is a vital, sacred, historical landmark. The ghost isn't just a random spirit, he's a veteran. The Battle of Old Hrolden was a real, critical, but often overlooked event. It was here that Hjalti Earlybeard, the man who would become Tiber Septim, and his small, outnumbered army of Nords and Colovians, famously broke a siege by the Reachmen. This victory was one of the first critical steps in his campaign to conquer Skyrim, and eventually unite all of Tamriel. This inn, this building that Adis is letting fall to ruin, and that Scully is desperately trying to sweep, is the Tamrielic equivalent of Valley Forge or the Battle of Hastings. It is a holy site for the entire empire, and Adis is the custodian. She's not just a bad innkeeper, she's a failed curator. Scully is not just a worried child, he is the last anxious guardian of one of the most important sites in the history of the world. He is literally living with the ghost of the empire's founding, and he is of course unadoptable. He has a mother, he has a home, he has a job. The game's logic sees him as stable, but he is anything but. He's a small boy, drowning in anxiety, propping up a lazy mother, a failing business, and the weight of history itself. His story is the final, quiet, and most insidious tragedy of all. He is not a victim of violence or poverty or hatred. He is a victim of responsibility. His childhood has been stolen not by a monster but by a ledger, and so our chronicle of Skyrim's children comes to a close. We have seen 17 lives, 17 unique and devastating cracks in the stone facade of this world. We began with Lucia, a ghost in an alley, and Sofie, a flower freezing in the snow, tragedies of pure, simple poverty. We descended into the institutional hell of Honorhall, where Grellad's kindness forged cynics, beasts and zealots from the raw, terrified material of children like Samuel. We walked the perfect villages, only to find the mundane, private monsters like Lemkiel, who fractured his own daughters into a dreamer and a bully. We saw the cold, silent homes of Whiterun and Riverwood, where the emotional neglect of Braith's parents and the lazy apathy of Frodnar's created their own kinds of cruelty. We saw the children of labour, Alesan in his nightmare town, Gralnach in his alcoholic prison, Erith in her debt slavery, and Hrein at his dangerous dead-end job. And finally, we ended with Scully, a child who wasn't beaten or starved, but who was simply, quietly and completely crushed by the weight of a life he never asked for. They are all victims, not of dragons or Daedra, but of the simple, crushing, and relentless indifference of the adult world. They are the background details, the set dressing for a grand adventure, their small, unheard stories waiting in the alleys, the mines, the farms, and the inns, for the one person in all of Skyrim who might finally stop and listen. The fires of the smelter in Markarth have long since cooled. The last echoes of Hroar's defiant shout are lost in the damp stone of Riften, and here, at the Old Hrolden Inn, the only sound is the creaking of the old timbers and the low, sleeping sigh of the wind as it passes through the hills of the Reach. The stories are told. The 17 small souls we have chronicled tonight are for now at rest, their fates, their fears, and their faint flickering hopes captured in this quiet moment. The great cold land of Skyrim is vast, but tonight it feels a little smaller, a little more known. We have walked its roads and learned its saddest secrets, and now that journey is at an end. The time for adventure is over, the time for exploration is done. Now there is only the quiet of your room, the soft, steady hum of the fan, and the comforting weight of the blankets. The tales of hardship and survival can fade like embers in a cooling hearth, leaving only a gentle, lingering warmth. There are no more quests to fulfill, no more souls to save, No more steps to climb. There is only this stillness. Let the darkness be a comfort. Let the silence be a friend. It is time to let go. Dim the lights if you haven't already. Close your eyes and just drift.